Thank you very much for joining Workshop 5, in which we are considering future-proofing. My name is Malcolm Foley, not Daniel, as it says on the caption. I don't know how to change it. I'm chair of the SCQF Quality Committee, previously Vice Principal for Learning and Teaching at the University of West Scotland. Without further ado, I'll just briefly introduce our two speakers. We have firstly Kerry Heathcote, who's joining us from Edinburgh College, and we'll be talking about esports. And then that will be followed by Iain Hawker from Fife, who will be who's going to be speaking about health, well-being, and other associated matters. What we decided in the first iteration of this workshop is that we would leave all of the questions to the end, that I would try and curate some of the questions from the chat. So please use the chat facility if you want to add any questions in for me to put to the speakers. Okie dokie. So first off is you, Kerry, on esports.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you again to SCQFP for the opportunity to be here this afternoon. So I'm going to do just a short presentation around esports for the players SCQF level 6 qualification, but also incorporating some of the other creative and critical thinking SCQF credit rated qualifications and continuing professional development courses that we offer, so both students and staff alike. So without further ado, the esports qualification. The background to this was a collaborative exercise with an academy over in North Lanarkshire called the Brave Junior Academy. And the purpose of this was to create a qualification with young people, for young people, at specifically SCQF level 6. We credit rated it because we wanted young people to be able to access nationally recognised qualifications. So through that academy, the intent was to engage, disengage young people. Two huge advocates of disengaged young people accessing qualifications are Emma Williamson and Tracy Hall, who run the Brave Junior Academy. So they asked us to help write a qualification that encompassed everything esports in terms of meta skills and the communication development and the ecosystem of esports. And it was duly launched at the Cell 4 esports event in Dundee back in November. So this is me learning something new too. So every day is a learning opportunity. I knew very little about esports. And Emma Williamson there on the right-hand side is the lady in the middle of Sheila Godfrey and I. And Sheila at Edinburgh College, part of my quality enhancement team, was the one who supported Emma and Tracy and the young people to help write the qualification. So also a real big learning curve for them too. So this looks like great fun, but also there's a serious side to this. And that's we wanted to promote equality, diversity and inclusion in esports and having these women as advocates at the front and centre. Also important was the making sure that the indicative content, whilst being engaging and fun for everybody, was also highly robust. So that was a key focus of the credit rating process, which involves a proposal, a comprehensive proposal process, 2 reviews as a minimum, a collaborative standardisation meeting, and then a vetting process. So, and I've shared the process that we put in place with a number of other colleges who are now also using that. So some of the benefits of having the qualification SCQF credit rated are that it gives the learners a sense of transferability, of formally recognised employability skills. And here I've pulled this slide together, just picking out some of the indicative content. And if I put this in a bit of context for you, so two of the key projects of the qualification are branding, for example. So young people have to create video content. They have to show streaming skills. It's highly technical, and I know, having spoken to Emma and Tracy, I'll just pause.
Sorry, I was like, oh, what happens if it was?
I forgot.
That like another day or something?
Sorry,
Yes, no, you're on it.
Somebody's not on mute. Would you mind all going on mute, please? Thank you.
Thank you. So the video creation and streaming, really highly developed technical skills. Also, the ecosystem of esports itself. So there are 5 key areas and 30 elements of indicative content. 5 key areas around creators, game developers, organisations, pro players, and indeed tournament organisers. So while the process and the learning, teaching and assessment focuses on those skills and about reflective practice, etc., it's really important to note for the purposes of these qualifications that it's not entirely focused on the final artifact outcome. It's actually about the fail and fix process. And to use a sort of comparative mathematics model, sort of showing you're working out. So in terms of pathways, potential and progression, the delivery models currently includes Edinburgh College, but also community delivery partners, and we're looking at broadening that out. We're currently, as it's SCQF credit rated and now on the database, we've applied to put it on the Insight tool, where 2 of our other creative and critical thinking qualifications already exist and appear. So that makes it much more user-friendly and accessible for schools, which is really important. In terms of potential pathways, 6 were immediately identified. It was important it was at SCQF level 6, so that ultimately it can attract UCAS tariff points, should those young people want it to. And the 6 immediate progression routes are around business administration, retail and marketing, events management, broadcast media, games development, and media and sound production. So in terms of future plans, there are many. So we've just published on the database the Let's Get Thinking Creatively. You can see an image of that on the left-hand side of the screen, levels 1 to 4, for presentation at next academic session across primary schools and for students with different learning needs. We've also started engaging in third-party credit rating activity, so most recently with West College Scotland, New College Lanarkshire, Education Scotland Schools and Microsoft as a collaborative to level 5 computing systems, so non-traditional computing students will access those 2 courses. And also the continuing professional development of staff, because whilst we want students and learners of all ages to access these qualifications, it's important that staff feel confident in supporting those too. So I have a short film that the Learning Technologies and Resourcing team created for you today, just to get the perspective of some of the delivery staff and also an external partner from National Galleries of Scotland. So it's not just internal staff that we're supporting, it's external colleagues too.
If teaching and learning concentrates too much on content and knowledge at the expense of higher order cognitive skills, improvement in the classroom stagnates. What changes need to be made when the development of cognitive skills required for progressive learning reaches a standstill. To achieve a higher order of thinking, the traditional teacher-centered style of learning is not sufficient. Students need to be taught what to do with their knowledge in a creative way, and to be given the space and time to learn in an active manner. In response to this, Edinburgh College developed a suite of awards in order to transform passive students who are reliant on their teachers into more engaged, curious, and self-regulated learners by creating a space for engaging and responsive learning.
The Teaching Creative and Critical Thinking course has allowed me to step away from the norms of conventional teaching and allows me to bring creativity, imagination and innovation back into the classroom. It has allowed me to generate and create resilient, confident and self-regulated learners who are actually excited about learning and about development and their own experiences within the classroom. Anyone within education would really benefit from this course and from learning the different methods that can be applied into all areas of education.
The awards are Level 5 Creative Thinking, Level 6 Creative Thinking, Level 9 Developing Creative Assessment Tools, including project writing, Level 10 Teaching Creative and Critical Thinking, Level 10 Developing Creative and Critical Thinking in Leadership.
Taking part in this course has been quite a revolution in the way that I teach. I didn't expect it to have such an impact on me. It's given me the understanding how hard it is for students to actually take notes and learn a lot of information. One of the things that I've really taken to heart is the fact that I should be teaching a lot more capabilities for the students, things like resilience, curiosity, and creativity.
If you are interested in your students undertaking the Level 5 or 6 as an option, then you have the following choices. 1. For the Level 5 and 6, you can register for the awards with Edinburgh College as the awarding body and use your own already made resources to underpin it. Or you can register and ask for support in developing your own cross-curricular resources. 2. You can register teaching staff for the Level 10 in Teaching Creative and Critical Thinking. During the process, they will naturally develop resources which can be used to support the delivery of the Level 5 and 6 awards. This award covers issues such as, what does creativity mean in our classrooms? Is it something we are actively interested in pursuing? Does our curriculum support and encourage creative and critical thinking and practices? What pedagogies can help enhance our approach to creativity? What resources can we develop to encourage different thinking? Do our assessment practices reflect our aims of creative and critical thinking? What ways do we practice creative pedagogy in subjects not typically considered to be creative, such as maths, computing, engineering, business, care, and health? How are we supporting and building on other essential meta skills?
I really enjoyed this course because it gave me a lot of possibility to empower the way to engage the audience, the attendees, and to use finally comics and illustration and animation as the main way to convey a message and finally get rid of the prejudice related to this kind of visual art. So I really recommend, I highly recommend this course for all of the teachers, all of those teachers who would like to engage their audience differently and to give an effective, inclusive, accessible result.
We can also support in embedding creative and critical thinking, as well as other meta skills within the curriculum. Current candidates have said that the course is refreshing and empowering, is creating independent learners who challenge, is a new way of delivery, never going back to the norm, is helping them rediscover being a learner, is the best CPD they have ever done, and recommend that every teacher should do it. If you would like to find out more about Critical Thinking Awards at Edinburgh College, please email creativethinking@edinburghcollege.ac.uk.
That you completed, Kerry? Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. that raised even more questions in me than the last time that I saw you. So we'll see how we go. I'd rather prioritise the questions from those who are active participants rather than the chair if we can. So please get your chat on, as they say, and let me know. Is there anything there yet? Not much there yet. Please help me. So it's a workshop. It's just a lecture. Okay, we'll go straight on to Iain though, and then we'll consolidate the questions at the end, as I did the last time. Iain, off you go. Iain is. I should have said Iain is Assistant Principal for Quality and Academic Partners at Fife College. Off you go, Iain.
Thanks very much, Malcolm, and good afternoon to you all. As Malcolm says, I'm Iain Hawker from Fife College, and I'm going to talk about our Health, Wellbeing and Personal Safety programme, which has been credit rated on the SCQF. And it's nice to see a large group here this afternoon and some familiar names. So hello to everybody that knows me, and hello to everybody that doesn't know me as well. So let's have a look then at the programme that we've been using here at Fife College. It started about 3 or 4 years ago. Wait a minute. There we go. It started about 3 or 4 years ago. The background was we were having sort of informal discussions with some of our external partners, which included at that point National Health Service in Fife, and also with our Student Support Services team within the college. And we were identifying there was a need for looking at the health and well-being of our students to help them be signposted to support services, both internally to the college and externally within the region of Fife through NHS and other services. And those discussions then developed to think, well, maybe we should create something and have a course online. We would have those resources in a single sort of one-stop shop for the students to access, and then we could help support their health, well-being, and that then grew into the personal safety element as well as looking at maybe safety online and e-safety. We also want to think, well, if the learners are going to take this course, for the reasons that we've just spoken about, it might be good if we could have a qualification as well. And the college, being a credit rating body, allowed us to then create our own course and credit rate that. I suppose what we all would do at the beginning is think, well, is there something off the shelf already that we could just take and use instead of going through that long and quite intense process? And there wasn't anything there. And by going through the credit rating process, that allowed us to design and create a programme from scratch, and it meet the needs of all the partners and meet the needs of the aim of the target audience, which was our students here at Fife College. So we then vote on getting a group together, and we also widened those partners to move forward. So we then started to include, as well as NHS Fife and our student support team at the college, we had Police Scotland involved, the Fife Social Care Partnership. We included Fife Council and Education, strictly from the senior phase and the secondary schools across the 18 schools in Fife. And we also had student representation from our Fife College Student Association. With the elements of some of those partners, there was also some funding available to help with through this process, which is always very helpful in the sector we work in. And that allowed us, or needed us to have an element on smoking cessation. So that was incorporated into this as we move forward. And I think it was really important to have many of the partners involved and also multiple representations from those partners. Because as you go through the credit rating process and actually creating the qualification, deciding which level it's going to be at on the SCQF, and how big is that qualification going to be when it comes to finally credit rating that, we do need the expertise. And at Fife Colleges, to meet the SCQF requirements, there are 3 stages, if you like, for validation and verification of the qualification as you create them. As well as the team putting the qualification together and designing it, that then goes through to our first level, which is our credit rating panel at the college, and that's chaired with an independent chair that's not been involved in the process up to that point. Once it goes then through that process, it then goes to an approval panel, again with a separate and new independent chair, but the chair from the first panel then comes through and is represented on the second panel to keep that consistency and insight as we go through. And then finally it does go to a third panel, which I chair at the ratification panel, and the chair from the previous group then comes to that with a wider group as well to then ratify and sign that off for full approval before we can then put it on the SCQF database, which is available on the SCQF website for you all to view from any qualifications on the SCQF from any credit rating body. What we also need to do as part of the partners identified, as you can see from that list, many were not from an educational background. someone had not been involved in designing qualifications, writing qualifications, or indeed delivering any of these. So with the great support from the SCQF partnership, we were able to deliver some training on campus and on some of our sites where the SCQF reps came and did the training. That training you can engage with the SCQF can be customised basically to meet your needs. It could be a half day or a full day. And also some of our staff involved had already been in some of that training at the SCQF offices in Glasgow at that time. So we were then able to get a mix and match of that training to support the design of the qualification going forward. And it was great that partners could be involved in that process as well. The qualification itself ended up to be a level 5 qualification once it was fully ratified and credit rated, and it was awarded 3 credit points. 3 credit points being based on the number of notional learning hours that we decided with the qualification would be studied for by a learner, and that would be about 30. So you take the credit points, multiply that by 10, that gives you the number of notional learning hours. So 30 learning hours gave us those 3 SCQF credit points on the framework at level 5. The qualification itself there's an overview there of the 3 learning objectives that we all agreed on. And below those objectives are the detailed, there was 8 learning intentions spread across those 3 objectives. And the idea of the learning intentions, what we would then measure, what was the knowledge, what was the skills, what was understanding we expect the learner to have or able to achieve and to demonstrate once they completed their course. And because we designed the course ourselves and the qualification ourselves, we could then decide how did we want to assess the learner, how would we confirm that they've been through that process, they've got that knowledge, they've got that understanding and knew that. And the team and the groups involved decided we'd use multiple choice online assessment for this. And they again decided what would be the pass mark for that. So again, the power and the flexibility within the credit rating process allows the teams to design not only the content, but then how is it assessed and how is it confirmed that those learners have met the requirements of that SCQF level and that the number of learning hours within that. The benefits of doing this, which alludes to the problem we had at the beginning of, we wanted to design something, we wanted to award a qualification or certificate for the award, but there was nothing off the shelf we could use. So that gives you the great ability and flexibility of a bespoke product for what you want. It meets the needs you want to identify for your client base, for the learners you've got this for. You just design and create your own learning intentions, making sure that you've got the right wording and the strength in there to then align it to whatever SCQF level you're looking at having this for. And there was some debate about that. Is it a level 5? Is it a level 6? That part's maybe a level 7. No, we need to bring that down. So there's a lot of movement through those processes to then make sure we're all confirmed at what level it then lies at the end of this process. For us, it was great to then have that learning acknowledged on the SCQF and in the database itself. And the whole process, I think, really works well for partnership working, not only for internal partners and colleagues across different departments and areas of college, but also with our external partners and that staff development that we then were able to give through the SCQF partnership with our external partners and also our internal staff as well. And that, I think, has given us a good grounding for further projects. We've worked with some of those partners to go forward. And it's about using those different partners, their expertise, the synergy of those relationships, and getting that cohesive and inclusive relationships has been really beneficial. Within that partnership and following from that, we've also benefited Fife College in being recognised as a credit rating body, and for us to then go out and do further third-party credit rating, where we've credit rated products and qualifications for other organisations. Whereas this product was something we designed for ourselves as Fife College and for our students, we have been able to go down the route of looking at third-party credit rating for that. And we go through this process as well with processes in place, but we also used that particularly, like I say, this was about 3 years ago, to really confirm, compound and enhance our internal processes with appropriate flow charts, support information for our third-party partners as well, to give a really good understanding, a thorough process to meet the requirements of the SCQF partnership framework. The future for this qualification, we are now including the qualification for 2022-23 applicants. So as part of their Keep Warm process, when they're given and when they accept an unconditional offer, those students are being offered and enrolled on this qualification. So they're then supporting them before they start their full-time course in August, September of this year. And to date, we've had, since we credit rated the qualification, over 800 enrolled in the programme. Moving forward, like I said already, it's increased awareness internally within the college as well, and to make us think about if the product is not there from the awarding bodies. We work with about 26 awarding bodies at Fife College. If the product that we exactly want at the right level, in the right shape and format is not available, we can and we do have the power to write our own and have these acknowledged as a qualification formally by going through the process as a accreditation body. And that does develop internal partnerships much more, and those external links. And Fife College, as it was crowned or badged the status of SCQF College Ambassador, continues to fly that flag. And thank you very much for the invite today to come and speak about this. And it enhances the different way the approaches of Edinburgh College, if you heard from Kerry, and ourselves here at Fife College moving forward. And what I'd like to do now is we hand back to Malcolm, please.
Malcolm was a bit caught out there being muted, okay, Iain, thank you very much. I enjoyed that once again, like Kerry. A second listening led to a whole lot more questions in my head, but we have a fairly large audience for this one. You are wanting a few more this time, Iain, so you have had your wish. There's a couple of questions already live up there, so let's reward those who have been in first. And try and deal with some of the issues at least as widely as we can. Kirsty was asking about the student responses, specifically to you, Iain, but if we take it a little bit more widely to both of you, I mean, both of you made quite a bit about the student engagement. I think you used the term engaging the disengaged, Kerry, and Iain, you talked about involving your student body and so on. So yeah. And maybe I take it even further to allow you to be more expansive in your answers. What's the challenge you found in dealing with students coming in to design the learning versus your professional expectations, perhaps? One of you go first. Don't hesitate. Iain, you're unmuted.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Let's go for that. I mean, the appetite to engage in the design for that one, particularly from the Students' Association, was very high and very positive. They recognised, as did the NHF and the partners involved, of the need for this. How could we have a one-stop shop for that, with the resources for health and well-being, for support services, and for sort of self-reflective approaches for that. And also about, you know, being safe online. As we move to a more digital environment, we're issuing, you know, devices and laptops, etc., to students. How could we then encourage and support and give students the awareness of where they could get that support, or maybe even to see signposting or to detect when they were having issues or problems for that. So they were very much engaged with that and wishing to participate. And I think the bonus on top of all that, and the creme de la creme, or the icing on the cake, if you like, was the idea that if they did go through this, there is the option to sit the assessment. And I think that's been important for us as well, that whilst we encourage the completion of the assessment to get the qualification, it's not the be all and end all, because behind the scenes about the health and the well-being is very, very important for us here and for all of us. But there is that opportunity for learners to engage with that, to then get that final qualification recognition of that.
And yes, obviously a willingness, right? Would you say it was right through the student body, or was it just specifically your Students' Association that went for it? Because they're likely to be more bought in, I suppose, is what I'm hinting at.
Yeah, I mean, they were bought in, but obviously their engagement then were a class rep system. From the class reps, there was very much the student voice was represented across, you know, all of our faculties, with the full-time and the part-time students, that they did see there was a need for this resource to be created, and they thought the idea of the certification of that was just a really good thing to add to that.
Yeah. How about you in terms of this, engaging the disengaged, Kerry?
Thank you, Malcolm. So I'll come at it from two angles. So the esports qualification specifically, those young people at the Brave Junior Academy were all disengaged with formal and nationally recognised qualifications. So Emma and Tracy worked with them on building this one specifically. It started in around March last year. So it's been a year in the making. And what's manifest is that those young people now they do go to school, and they always were going to school, but they weren't very engaged. They now actually go to the Brave Junior Academy with their homework on Saturdays and complete that there alongside the projects that are involved in the qualification. So there's been a double positive side effect in developing that with them. And then from the other point of view, here in the college, I'll use the example of the level 6 creative and critical thinking qualification with the sustainable architecture design students. So those students are doing the level 6 qualification in context of sustainable architecture to give an edge to their CVs when they leave us or progress, etc. So two totally different groups of learners, but have all benefited in different ways. And it does take a bit of work to get the students engaged. It's a different way of thinking. It's not about the outcome and the artifact and the final product. It's about the process and reflective practice and working together and failing and fixing.
Yeah, thanks, Kerry. We had a bit of chat about this the first time around, so it's not a problem to have it again, the process versus outcome, or the process as part of the outcome. I think you talked about showing your working, I think was the term I quite like. I rather like that, actually. And I just wonder, when students are doing this alongside, dare I call them, more traditional subjects with perhaps pedagogies that may be slightly more didactic, how has that challenged the students, and probably more or equally, how has that challenged those who are delivering to students?
Well, that's a really good question, thank you. And that is how the level 9 writing flexible assessments and project-based approaches, project-based tools came into being, because the wonderful quality enhancement team who support teacher education here realised that was a gap, and so created that and turned it into a 170-hour qualification, so that, again, that would be SCQF credit rated continuing professional development for those staff who wanted to do that. So that's that side of things. And then in order to get those students on board and more project focused, the team wrote a specific project brief that married up with their traditional specification of their qualification and cross-referenced the course aims and outcomes, and just moved away in a compliant manner, I hasten to add, from the unit by unit approach to do the two joined up. So I have a phrase, and that's duplication is illegal, which the team have adopted, and so have those staff and those students. So it's worked very well.
That's good. It sensitises students to a whole lot of other issues that, as they continue their education, will be important to them. Fiona liked your phrase, Iain, keeping the students warm. There's an awful lot of nice phrases come through. I'll be using them in the course of the next week or two, actually. Yeah, but so how's that been done? Your students, as Fiona observed, students have choices. So you're kind of doing a marketing PR sort of exercise here on something that for some won't be hugely popular. Not everyone's engaged with their own health and well-being.
Well, I suppose, but I mean, our Keeping Warm campaign is very much, learners applying for college courses in January or February. They may get an offer in March, and then they don't hear anything from us till August or September to say, your enrolment date or attendance date is, in a couple of weeks' time. So we're very much being very proactive in keeping engagement with our students from the point of enrolment right through. And we've got a 3-phase stage where they get provisional enrolled and they come through to Keep Warm stage 1, 2, and then to full enrolment. So as part of that Keep Warm process, we want the student to be as prepared and as ready for their course as possible when they do start, if you like, their day 1 of their formal HN or level 6 or level 5 course, or whatever that might be. So as part of that, we do digital familiarisation courses, and we have also got this health and well-being. So the learners are as prepared and informed as much as possible. And also, because we deliver it through our VLE as well, virtual learning environment, and our student portal, it gives them access to that at an earlier stage. and they'll get used to navigate that and go around the appropriate parts of that and those components before they hit day one of learning of their course. So the appetite to engage has been pretty high. It's about, you know, being motivated, about they've applied, they've got their offer now, and they're starting then to engage and not just wait 4 months before they can engage with the college. So that's it's a great thing to keep them engaged and to keep the momentum engagement going. And then obviously from a college point of view, and many of it maybe are from colleges around the room today, it's about then finding where we're losing or there's disengagement. We can then do follow-up quite promptly as opposed to waiting to enrollment day later on.
Although I was being a little bit dismissive when I called it marketing, I've worked in marketing much of my life, so I'm not dismissing marketing, but there is an outcome there, which is about, you know, maintaining that relationship or establishing that relationship using relatively positive tools like this, that give the students some outcomes, but also give them, as I say, the perhaps unseen outcome to them, which is that they are now engaged with the college. Yeah, that's interesting stuff. I wish I'd thought of that when I was responsible for student recruitment. There we are. I'm sure it's very commonplace now, long after I've gone. Aileen is asking, in both of your cases, has this meant you're actively thinking all the time about other opportunities to innovate and credit rate? In other words, you know, are these isolated incidents, you know, within your own working environments, or is this part of a philosophy that's underpinning your colleges? Maybe I'll start with you, Kerry. I think we've had something similar this morning. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. So there is something that when colleagues across the college started to realise that, you know, that this was actually really exciting and something they'd like to be involved in, we've just embarked upon a full review of the schools college partnership provision, and 8 areas across college have put themselves forward to propose qualifications for the team to look at credit rating and helping them with the proposals for. So a full review of the schools college partnership in terms of our own SCQF credit rated qualifications. So we have 8 new endeavours to start working on as we speak. And Iain and I said in the first session that we're actually going to collaborate on that and do a bit of work across the region. So that's a really good outcome from today's session.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, Iain, how about, is this philosophy underpinning what's been your leadership? Your creative leadership, obviously, is undertaking.
I think it's certainly widened exposure to this and what can be done. I think from the Fife angle, we've benefited a lot more from external activity and third-party credit rating, which has worked well with us. And there'll be another launch by ministers next month of another project we're doing for a Scotland-wide qualification as well. And I think the key here for us, and we've been working with SCQF partnership lately, and my quality manager has, about the recognition of the level 6 stuff, which Kerry alluded to then be recognised formally for insight tariff points for the schools and also for UCAS tariff points at level 6 for university entry. And I think James Dunphy in the earlier sessions this morning talked about that, and he was actually asked about the wider recognition of non-SQA traditional qualifications such as hires, etc. And I think when we can look at micro-credentials as well, there are certainly great opportunities that these will create for us in the college sector as credit rating bodies to design bespoke qualifications of whatever size and level we want, have them recognised formally, and meet the ever-changing needs. And by working with our schools as well as employers, if we think about employer training programmes, some of the stuff we actually do internally within the college as well. We've got teaching in colleges today, which was credit rated by Fife College, in fact, just recently for this launch this year. So these things that are wide within the sector allow us to create, instead of taking off the shelf, bespoke qualifications that meet actually the needs of our learners and our target markets, or indeed our own staff, if we're thinking about it from our HR departments, etc. as well, how we can design and co-create our own qualifications for our staff development from professional services and our academic teams as well.
Yeah, good. Well, I've got another question here, which is a particularly good question, and Yeah, yes, you have expressed yourself very well. At least I've understood what the question is. So the question is, we're still in a world where employers are very outcome oriented. How do you balance that expectation with students in these more interesting course structures? To be honest, I chaired a school board for a while, and many students and even some teachers are quite outcome oriented as well, a traditional orientation. So when you go to an employer and say, this student will be very good at failing and fixing, you know, as opposed to making widgets or whatever, how does that square? And are students confident that they can talk up the skills they have and the value of those to potential employers? I'll start with you again, Kerry, since you used the fail and fix.
Thank you, absolutely. And that has hit the proverbial nail on the head. And I'm sure our students will be able to talk through how they managed to hit the nail on the head too. And that's actually why it's really important these qualifications are SCQF credit rated. And what we've done is made them at level 5, 6, well, and levels 1 to 4, actually, the most recent ones, the same size as traditional qualifications. Made sure that the learning outcomes are very clear, made sure that the employability and work-related aspects are transparent. They're not written couched in educational terms. They're very clear about what they do and what the purpose of the qualifications are. And we've been very deliberate about how we've proposed and written the qualifications for that reason. So they won't at all, in my humble opinion, disadvantage students in any way whatsoever, quite the opposite.
Yeah. Iain?
I think it's a really good question. I think that the market, the qualifications market is just there's all these different terminology. The kudos of a higher SCQF level 6. I think if you look at the SCQF framework, that's probably the minority of qualifications. Level 6 is the higher, but everybody thinks it's potentially the gold star of the Scottish education system, etc. Whereas we've got foundation apprenticeships at level 6, which I believe and strongly support, particularly here in Fife as well, because the various and different qualifications is the beauty of the SCQF framework. It's the idea is that any qualification, the way it can be measured, how it's assessed, it's the criteria in terms of what level it's at, and this credit points for the size allows us flexibility within that. Moving forward, I can see things within the energy sector, the net zero, the green skills are areas for development for us, and we're actually working with a large employer at the moment in that field to look at, and that will be credit rated. But also when we're thinking about the products and thinking about the market, will employers understand these or will they acknowledge them? Let's make them part, and they are part of the things we spoke about, part of this process going forward to make sure that part of the design. So I know our college, we've got industry and employer advisory boards that come and sit with our course committees and our course teams, etc., to look at our formal and normal, if you like, HNs and national certificates things. But they're also around the table to talk about our commercial offering, our CPD for employers and employees, our flexible workforce development fund training as well. Yeah, making sure that they can be co-designers of what these are, and they could formally recognise their in-house staff development programmes on the SCQF by utilising ourselves as credit-rating bodies to formally recognise those as qualifications, and not just training that might be seen, but it could actually be formal qualifications with a recognised appropriate quality assurance and a judgment of competence, if you like, in that assessment process built within.
Iain, thank you. Yeah, I mean, what both of you have done, I guess, in accountancy terms, that you've taken a make or buy decision, and your choice has been to make rather than buy, not necessarily this way, but take something off the shelf. Is that part of the future? Is it because that has a cost, doesn't it? It's very easy to take something off the shelf, whereas the staff development cost, that's somebody's not doing something else to be doing this. So did this factor into the management team's thinking around what both of you at management team level? So did your finance director speak up and say, hey, wait a minute, there's an easy solution here? And you said, no, we want a pedagogical solution. Iain, I can see you smiling. I can see you smiling, so I'll let you go first this time.
Absolutely. The finance manager, I think, sits on my shoulder too often, sort of that little voice in the ear. At the end of the day, we need to think about what's the best for the learner and for the client market. And you're right, I can take something off the shelf of the SQA, Sitting Guilds, IMI, whatever shelf today, and I could probably implement that very quickly. This process is not easy, we've spoken about, and what Kerry's spoken about. It can't just happen in a couple of weeks. It sometimes takes weeks, if not months, to do, and there's a lot of people involved in the processes through that to make sure it's quality assured. So I think what you need to think about if you were doing this is the longevity of the product you're talking about, and to make sure there's the right resource in it. We were lucky on the health and wellbeing one to be able to secure some external funding. Sometimes I know from the SCQF themselves there are pots of money available to credit rating bodies every now and then as well. But depending on the partners involved and sponsorships, etc., there are often opportunities for that. But yeah, you're right, there is an investment to be made. There's a lot of time as well, so it might be benefit in kind or an actual cost realisation. But we need to think about what's the benefit and why we're doing that, to do that return on investment from a project point of view. Good.
How about you, Kerry, with the make or buy?
A robust business case, Malcolm, basically, and in terms of esports specifically, so that will be offered commercially as well as from a credit funded model. So we've actually got 4 delivery models, each of which have costed out, and each of which the Chief Operating Officer is more than happy with for me to continue in my current vein. And it actually, in terms of future proofing, which is what this conference is all about and this workshop, that's the key thing: future proofing the provision, being responsive. Somebody said in the chat there, so that we can be more responsive. We can credit rate the micro credentials that we've spoken about, and we're involved in tertiary conversations with HEIs about those as well, the difference between the college consortium and the HEI partners. There are so many opportunities to be responsive alongside the traditional routes.
Yeah, sounds like you might have put your Chief Operating Officer through your creative and critical thinking and leadership course. Yeah, so maybe we should all be going through that.
It's available commercially.
It's nice little advert there. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I'm reassured, and I'm sure my colleagues in SCQF will be reassured that both of you have mentioned the role of those colleagues in the training and bringing forward these types of qualifications, their direct role in either coming to the colleges or supporting the training. And I think particularly you, Iain, I was interested, but I imagine Kerry will have a view as well. You talked about my colleagues getting involved with people who were not traditional educators, with the police or with other partners that you're working with. How did that? I'm not trying to get an evaluation of my colleagues, but how does that work? Is that something we are going to have to do to future-proof the SCQF or learn to do?
I think, I mean, the team, and some of them are on the call here. I can see their faces.
I know they are.
That's what I'm saying. No, the team, to be honest, the team are great. They're very open, very transparent, very welcoming, responding to our needs at any time. The norm is, up to previously was this just we would send staff, if you like, or partners up to Glasgow, to the venue there. They have offered and they have been out to some of my venues in Fife, some of my partner venues in Edinburgh, etc., to deliver. And the idea is that they will accommodate the needs of that client base and take something that they've got off the shelf and customise it or make it bespoke for the group. Yeah. And the idea is that they can extend certain parts of that component and design the programme to meet the needs of the client. So if they're academic lecturers, they know where to go in. So they get a sort of a remit or view of the group they'll be talking to, so they know how to pitch and where for that. And thankfully, all that has been, and I'm sure it'll continue to be free to us as credit rating bodies as well. So that's when we think about the cost barriers further down the line, that is definitely not a cost barrier. And I think also the supporting documentation, which everybody on the call today can get access via the SCQF website. Like the framework documentation, the credit rating body documentation, it's all very detailed and all very user friendly as well. And again, that's been provided to our partners as well as part of the onboarding and the continued engagement with them. Yeah. Kerry, are you using the SCQF training?
Absolutely. We actually had a waiting list, and SCQF colleagues kindly put on a bespoke training session because the team were literally chomping at the bit to have that, and really benefited from it, and it just set them off. And just as a final comment, I have to say that, and I asked them for some quotes because they knew I was coming on today to do these webinar sessions. They've felt inspired by having something new to get their teeth into, and really value the support of SCQFP. So thank you for that. Okay. And as Iain said earlier, happy 21st birthday.
Yeah, I think I've managed to get my little advertisement in there as well. Thank you for the support. We appreciate working with you. Absolutely. Fiona from the team is actually asking, can either of these programs be used as credit transfer, perhaps as optional modules into other programs you deliver? I think you've sort of answered your bit, Iain, have you? It's in terms of the warming up, but is this available freely across the whole of the time a student might be engaged with you, or just as a warm up?
It's mainly as a warm up now. Previously, it was part of some of our courses. It's been part of our senior phase offering as well for that. But with the flexibility and accreditation of prior learning processes as well, that anything can be transferred across within that across the framework. Yeah.
And have program leaders been willing to buy in? No, I mean metaphorically buy into it.
Up till now, it's been, if you like, an add-on, and to add to whatever the curriculum was. We haven't actually embedded it as instead of something else or credited across. But so far, it's been an add-on or an extra part of the keyboard.
Indeed, I think I might be able to guess your option, given your reaction, Kerry. Given you're already trying to sell me a leadership program, but these can be. Are they options, or they're embedded in some? Are they options in others on Edinburgh?
So both, actually, and that's why we've got a 4-model approach, which includes commercial activity. So it's like the qualifications themselves, the delivery models can also be flexible as long as they meet the standard. So we have those conversations with different groups of people, and so far we've been able to accommodate everyone's needs, and hope to be able to do that moving forward, and hope to get even more ideas about new qualifications.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting you say accommodate everyone's needs, because one of the things I'd written down in my second round of thinking, having heard you all twice, was, is there a temptation to over-engineer here? I mean, you're doing quite innovative development work with a large number of partners. Is there a temptation to over-engineer, especially in the assessment area? So
I'm happy to answer that, because we've had those professional discussions, and
right.
the answer is whilst I'm very pro change and innovation, I am the voice of reason. So I have had to sort of curtail some ideas, and they weren't necessarily poor ideas, but a step too far for right now. So no, we're being very pragmatic about the whole thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. How about Fife, Iain?
We are looking at other ways to assess. We've done some VR assessment. It's not been linked to. Well, it's actually been linked to an SQA unit. So there are other ideas, but it's trying to ensure it's the right assessment method and platform for that. And with the stuff that we've written, I mentioned that for the health and well-being, we were focused. We did what a multiple choice basis. We did what an 80% pass mark. Within your descriptor, you don't have to write that. It could be quite open and flexible. It depends what you want when you design it. So if it's the right thing to have and state, it's going to be a virtual reality assessment, and that's right for the needs of that. That was a construction area we're looking at in health and safety, and that was the benefits were needed for that. Then that would be appropriate. Because I think some of the frustration sometimes of taking things off the shelf is the restrictions, particularly in the assessment methods. Or you want to cover all these 13 things, but you only want to do 6, or those 6 are only relevant to your students. You want to spend more time on why, but there's not enough there to cover that. So this allows that flexibility.
I don't know about either of you, but certainly in my experience, some years ago, albeit, but where I've had students involved in designing assessments, it's always been the students that have been more hawkish than the staff in some cases. Students want other students to really show that they've passed it. Is that all passé now? Are they much more open about types of assessment?
I think the move towards project-based approaches, whilst reflecting on your own part in that, is something that's alien to some students, but they're getting used to it now. And now we're at the end of March and they've been working on the qualifications since the end of August. They're almost saying to the members of staff in some groups, oh no, come on, let us do it like this. I'm going to do it all through vlog or all through blog, or look what I've done. And I've actually, the team have given me some of the lesson plans and work schedules that staff and students have submitted as part of the fail and fix process. And they're absolutely inspirational. So as their confidence grows, so does their thoughts and approaches to assessment.
Confidence is what I've written down just before you'd said it, actually. To have the confidence, for a student to have the confidence to do that must be massively encouraging to you and your colleagues when you see it happening, even though it can often be challenging, of course, at the same time. Okay, we're getting towards the end now. Does anybody else want to ask? I'm going to shut my window with a chat on it. Is there anybody else who wants to unmute and ask a question before we close up with the thank yous? I'm not seeing anything on my screen. Okay, well, thank you all for, well, particularly thank you to Kerry and Iain for doing the same thing twice. And they were across the range of questioning. Oh, there's a hand up. Sorry, I don't know your name and I can't pronounce it.
Applaud.
Oh, it's applause. It's a waving. I'm so used to, well, I'm so used to meetings rather than this format. Okay, yes, it is applause. Good. Yes, thank you very much. Kerry, Iain, I enjoyed hearing about what you've done. I don't know if the success is measured in terms of numerically. I mean, Kerry, you talked about 13 schools, 300 pupils. That sounds pretty impressive. Iain, 800 enrolled on that programme. Surely these have got to amount to success. I would suggest to you that being invited to take part on the 21st birthday celebrations of SCQF. It's also something else that you might want to put in your CV and call that success as well. So once again, thank you very much. And thank you for all of you who've engaged with this. And get yourself back to the main programme. Probably you'll be hearing from some of our beneficiaries, I think, in the later part of the afternoon. Bye-bye now.
Thank you very much. Bye.